Daniel H. Kearns for short-term vacation rental advice. Bill Sargent, County Council. Good morning, Bill.
Thank you, Commissioner Yamamoto. I was thinking about how long our short-term rental ordinance has been in effect, because I remember the hearings, and I looked it up. We finally passed it in 2009, you probably remember.
I was very involved.
At any rate, there were contentious hearings. We were gonna begin to regulate short-term rentals in unincorporated areas of Tillamook County, primarily the beach communities, Nescolein, Oceanside, Pacific City, and we got it done. So there's been some regulatory oversight, primarily through Sarah's office since that time. And fast forward, you mentioned, Commissioner Yamamoto, about the 60% increase. I think you said yearly increase in transient rental taxes.
Yes.
I can't imagine how much of that comes probably from short-term rentals, but I presume it's quite a chunk.
Vast majority.
Anyway, so I mean, they're a viable part of the community, and they provide a lot of revenue that the board can use for tourism. And I guess in a way, that's kind of a conundrum that you mentioned, Commissioner Starwood. They're funding it, but we're bringing more people in. Anyway, with all that said, it's created, issues in the communities okay, you've got these regulations, can you enforce them? Don't tell me what I'm gonna do with my private property, kinds of things. As an example, last week, and Sarah sees these all the time, I know you guys do too, there was a complaint made that somebody was having a wedding at a short-term rental, and they had a band there, and you can imagine, if you were living down the street, it might be a little bit much. You're in a residential community. Anyway, so as a result of all that, Sarah, I think, with commissioner support, put together a short-term rental advisory committee who are trying to study, how can we maybe amend this ordinance to reflect all of the issues that are incumbent with regulating a business like that. Livability, money, private property interest. Anyway, so, and I didn't get it, Commissioner Starr, about maybe the interaction, to be honest with you, with the transient rental tax ordinance, but, there is some of that overlay too, which I didn't really fully realize until I thought about today. So, I saw that the short-term rental committee was going to want their legal counsel there to talk about legal repercussions. And Commissioner Starr also mentioned being generalists. Well, Joel and I are kind of generalists. We have to deal with, land use issues, contracts, whatever comes up. But this one obviously is fraught with potential for litigation. Our friends to the south, Lincoln County, has been embroiled in legal suits and cases brought in the circuit court because they enacted regulations which severely limited, I think, maybe even outlawed short-term rental ordinances, and it's also affecting other communities, Clatsop County, other cities. So, with all of that said, I ran across Mr. Cairns, who I have dealt with over many years in the land use area. He represents applicants typically, but has recently began to concentrate more on trying to help governments out. And I looked him up, and he is a guy who knows short-term rental ordinance, legal issues very well, because he has been involved in Lincoln County, in Clatsop County, in the city of Hood River. And it seemed to me that it might be a worthwhile expenditure of funds to pay somebody who's an expert in this area to help the short-term rental committee maneuver through, and then later Sarah, to craft whatever ordinance revisions might come as a result of all of that community stakeholder discussion. So, Mr. Cairns called him, said he'd be happy to provide assistance. His rate is $250 an hour, which I think is competitive for sure.
It is.
Given his background, and it would, I think, be a good idea for the board to consider putting him to work. It'd be a great benefit, I'm confident, to the board ultimately, and to Sarah, certainly in the interim, when she's trying to pull all of this together and eventually come forward with something the board may want to consider. I forgot to mention, a couple months ago, you enacted a pause on issuing licenses to new short-term rentals, and the rationale for that was primarily because you wanted time to study all of this, and so this also has the prospect of maybe shortening that pause period, because you'll have, specialized legal help to get you to that point. So, long-winded way of saying, I think we ought to hire Dan Cairns to help you out.
What a recommendation.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Thank you, Commissioner. Sarah Absher for the record. So I too have worked with Mr. Kearns off and on for the last 2 decades on land use issues. He's a great land use attorney. I did have a lengthy conversation with him on Monday about the short-term rental program, and I fully support this request. I think he would be a great resource for us as we move forward with this process.
Perfect. Help keep the Board of Commissioners out of trouble.
Yeah, I agree completely. We have been meeting for 6 months now, Sarah, I think roughly, with the stakeholder group. There are a lot of folks who are really interested in this issue. We have a lot of public attendance at our meetings, both online and in person. We receive, as all commissioners do, we receive comments every week relating to the short-term rentals in our communities and how we can and should and regulate them and what everybody's thoughts are. And I think having the right attorney is going to be a very, very important step. We've put the pause on issuing licenses because we want to do this right. We want to take the time. We want to make sure that the changes we make to our ordinance are the right changes and that they're going to have the impacts we're looking for. And I think that by bringing Daniel Kearns into our conversation, we can make sure that from a risk perspective, from a legal perspective, the changes we make to our ordinance will stand. That we are not putting ourselves into sort of the quagmire that Lincoln County ended up with, where the ballot measure turned out to not be legal. It turned out that all the work that had been done had to be undone, and we do not want to be standing in that same set of shoes. We want to make sure that what we're doing is in fact legal and appropriate for personal property rights, for the role of government, and in relation to neighbors and others who may all have the opportunity and desire to enter into some legal conversation around this ordinance. So I think having an expert in this area is a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, I totally agree. It's for folks who are paying attention to it at all, it's in the news all the time because there's so many lawsuits going on about short-term rentals. So I think it's smart, and I appreciate the recommendation.
We concur. We don't want to get ourselves into a situation like my good friends and fellow commissioners in Lincoln County. They've gone through the ringer over these past few months.
They have.
So I think we're ready for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of a letter of engagement with Attorney Daniel H. Kearns for short-term vacation rental advice.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. So I have agenda item number 17 on my agenda, and there's nothing following it. Do we have another?
I have board concerns under 17.
Yeah, it's board concerns.
I have that as number 18 and 19 on the following page.
Yeah. It got unnumbered wrong.
Okay. So let me just ask for any board concerns. Agenda item number 18 on my agenda.
I just wanted to welcome Heather Clark, right?
No, Heather Desart, but
Sorry.
Heather Clark's a board member.
Oh,
Yeah, her name.
From Northwest Oregon Works, thank you for joining us today. It's nice to see you.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Commissioner Bell, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good to
And,
be here.
and I wonder if you're a reporter.
I am. I'm a new reporter there, Will Chappell. It's nice to meet you all.
Hi, Will Chappell, welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, board announcements. So I believe we're going into executive session. So let me go through board announcements first, and then we will break into executive session. So our board announcements. The Commissioners will hold a board briefing on Wednesday, September 28th, 2022 at 2 p.m. to discuss weekly Commissioner updates. The meeting will be held at the courthouse in the Nahamlin Room with new carpet, 201 Marble Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon. Teleconference number is 971-254-3149. Conference ID 736-023-979#. Also, the Commissioners will attend an Association of Oregon Counties District 7 meeting on Friday, September 30, 2022 at 10 a.m. Teleconference number there is 413-438-7327. Conference ID 996-000-482. Those are our board announcements for today. So we will be going into executive session under, Bill?
I'm looking. ORS 192-6602D.
2D, just one? Okay, perfect. But I think we need a quick break, if we would. So, time being 10:55 a.m., we will recess, excuse me,